Welcome to the Partner Business Technical Support team. My name is Phil and I'll be taking you through how to program up the 753 standard electrical sensor. What I'd like to do now is just quickly take you through the components of the 573 SSR sensor. What you have is the main sensor component just located there. It can get broken down into two parts. You've got the actual mounting base and you actually have the sensor head itself. So as you can see there, both the sensor head as well as the mounting base are actually coupled together in this instance. You also get this cover, which basically covers up all the screws and dial settings and stuff like that, so that just gets positioned over the top and gets pushed down. You also get a couple of screws, obviously, for installing the sensor into the surface or into that particular room or surface, wall and the like. And you also get this masking head. Now that actually goes over the top of the sensor, and I'll show you how that gets installed shortly. What I'm going to take you through now is the sensor's actual operation. So currently what we have on our sensor is the Lux Level Setting. Now this is the setting that basically allows the sensor to determine whether there's enough light or there's insufficient light. We have that currently set to 2 lux. What that basically means is that in order for this sensor to turn this particular light, which we see up the top here, on, the light level detected by this sensor has to be less than 2 lux. So regardless of the fact that it's detecting movement, and you might be able to see that there might be too much light here with the indicator that's inside the dome. So this is an LED indicator located inside the dome there. That flashes every time it detects movement. It's detecting my movement now and it's not turning the lights on. The next step of installing this sensor would be to basically set the desired target lux level, so the target lux in which you want the sensor to start turning the light on through this dial here. So what we're going to do for this example, we'll set it to approximately halfway, which would be around 1000 lux, and that basically means that under 1000 lux this sensor is going to start triggering the lights on. Now if it's above 1000 lux, what's going to happen is it's either, if the light is already on, it's going to re-trigger the internal timer, or let's just say for this particular example where we've got an ambient light source, let's just say for example the sun shining onto the sensor, it's not going to turn that light on at all. So I've set it. Now for an accurate result or accurate readings, what you really need to do at this particular point is basically wait the on time delay. Now that on time delay is set via this dial here. Now in this particular case it's probably around 5 seconds or so, and during this period the sensor cannot pick up any movement. So the best thing would be at this particular point is walk into another room, wait above that turn on time, and then walk back in and see if the lights come on. So I'll just quickly test that now. So what I've done at this stage is I've made sure that the sensor hasn't detected any movement for the time on period, which is set by this particular dial, and in my case it was probably about 20 seconds. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to trigger that sensor, or try to turn that light on. So I'm making movement. I can guarantee that the sensor has picked up my movement as determined by that red LED flashing indicator, and the light isn't coming on. So that to me basically tells me that the sensor deems that there's sufficient light in this room, and it's not going to turn on this particular light here. So what I'm going to do now is the next step would be to basically function test it at night time or in a dark environment to make sure it does actually turn those lights on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch off the lights, and I'm going to come back after 20 seconds of this sensor not detecting movement and see whether that light actually comes on. Okay, as you can see from that, what's happened is I've waited that 20 seconds, so that's that turn on delay time. It's really important that you wait that to make sure that the sensor hasn't picked up any movement. I've walked into the area of detection for the sensor, And what's happened is, as you can see, there isn't sufficient light within this room. So what the sensor has done is it's actually turned on the light. Now what happens from here on in is if I go to trigger this sensor, because the sensor is measuring, in this particular case above 1000 lux because of this light here, what it's going to do, because it's already turned that light on, it's going to re-trigger its internal timer to keep this light on. And when I move away from the area and the sensor no longer picks up any movement, after that internal timer times out, it will turn the lights off. So this is basically how a sensor works and how we go about programming the Lux Level setting. This sensor does offer another capability, which I'll discuss in a second, but I just want to basically say the only other thing you need to do at this particular point is adjust that time dial to the desired time level. The program we've just done for this sensor, in terms of setting the desired lux level as well as setting the turn on time, can be applied to pretty much the majority of our Clipsal sensor range. Now this particular sensor has this really neat functionality within it, and it's called teach mode. What it basically does is it takes a reading of the current lux level it's seeing here, and it will basically set that as the desired lux level. So to do it, really simple. We just need to spin this dial clockwise to this point here, and then wait 10 seconds because it's going to take a reading. We don't want to interfere with that reading. And then after that period, so we turn it. That flash was because we just went into sort of the higher zone, so it's nothing to worry about. And it's at this point here we basically need to await the turn on time and wait for the light to turn off and then test it again. What it's going to do is it's going to ensure that whenever this sensor detects any less light than what's currently detecting now, it will turn the lights on. If it's any more, it will either re-trigger the light if it's already on, or it won't turn the light on at all. So we'll just test that out now. So what I've done is I've left the room, I've ensured that the sensor hasn't picked up movement, in my case 20 seconds. In your case it's going to depend on your turn on time dial, so this dial here, and I'm trying to trigger the sensor and nothing's coming on. So what I'll do now is I'll quickly turn the lights off to simulate sort of a nighttime environment, and we'll test it out from there. So what I've done is I've gone over to the light switch, turned the lights off, it's simulating a dark environment, and as the sensor has picked my movement up, it's turned the lights on. And any subsequent movement from here is going to basically re-trigger that light, or the timer, for that light to remain on while it's detecting movement. As soon as I leave the area, the timer within this sensor here turns off and then turns the light off. This sensor has another really neat inbuilt feature within it. Essentially you can have an override for 4 hours just by flicking the power to the actual sensor. So to do it, all you need to do is basically turn the sensor off, on, then off, on again. And you have to do that within a relatively short amount of time. So I'll demonstrate that now. So I go off, on, and now that light is going to remain on for 4 hours. Now you can see from the sensor that this has been engaged just by having a look at the LED, and you might find it a bit difficult through video, but that LED there will remain on a on constant sort of state. Now to disengage this override, all you need to do is basically just turn it off and on again, and it goes back into occupancy mode. So I'll just demonstrate that. So it's off, on, and now it's back in occupancy. And if I cover that sensor up and provide a dark environment less than the desired lux level, it's going to turn that light back on.